Hi, I'm David Broadbent, and welcome to the Chaddy Enders, where each week we sit down with a former player, manager, owner, member of staff, or somebody associated with Oldham Athletic and lift the lid on life at Latics as they take us back through their experiences of being at Oldham Athletic Football Club. Firstly, I'd like to thank each of our sponsors, AC Tyres, Wayne and the team on Cross Street in Oldham, fantastic service, big Latics fans there as well. Also, I would like to thank Rick at Eden Creative, based in Royton. Eden do all the design work, did it for the club for many years as well. Also, big Latics fans. Also, NFL weekends, not just about going to NFL games. These are about weekends in America with the whole experience. So you go to the game, you also get the tailgate party before, you get the day before the game, you get the bar crawls around some amazing cities. They do like New York, Miami, Boston. They've got all sorts of cities that they do. So if you'd like to check all our sponsors out, that would be fantastic. And thank to all of them for their support of this podcast. So we go on to today's episode. And today's guest had 3 spells at the club spanning 12 years. He made 121 appearances. He scored 4 goals and he played under 8 different managers. So today we would like to welcome to the Chaddy Enders, Lee Croft. So joining us for episode 4, a warm welcome to Lee Croft. It's going to be weird calling you Lee through this, so I'm going to have to go with Crofty. How are you coping with lockdown, first of all, and how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, Brody. Coping with lockdown. Never knew I was such a good teacher.
Oh, you've got 3 knocking, 3 little ones, haven't you?
Yeah, but only 1 in school. So no, to be fair, my missus she's doing that. I'm just chasing the other 2 around all day.
And before lockdown kicked in, you were doing quite a bit of media work, weren't you? Which I guess has slowed down at the moment.
Yeah, I was due to do a City game on Boxing Day, but it's a lot of there's restrictions in grounds now and stuff. Like I was doing a bit of work with Norwich, and now they're not travelling to away games, doing any commentary. So that's put a stop to that, which is a shame because I was enjoying doing the radio work. But hopefully when times get back to normal, I can get back at it.
Oh well, mate, we can use this as training. You can pop this on your CV. It'll be fine. So let's start when you first joined Oldham, 2004. Brian Talbot, you were at Man City under Kevin Keegan at the time, and your Oldham debut was away at Thurrock. So that must have been something of a culture shock.
Oh my gosh, I remember it. I honestly remember it like it was yesterday. I remember getting the coach down and arriving at the ground. To be fair, it was a bit of a culture shock, but I've never been one for, I think that a game of footy is a game of footy, really. I think we won the game. I think that was my professional debut. I think was it on BBC One? It was on
it was live, yeah.
And I think if I remember rightly, I think I won a penalty in that game. So, but yeah, it was good to join. Do you know what, Brian Talbot? He was a good guy. I liked him. I remember one incident. What sticks in my head with him was we were playing a home game once and he got attacked in some riots. Do you ever remember that?
Mate, that was we'll come on to that game in a bit. That was the Bolton FA Cup game. And there was a big protest coming out of Manchester. I think it was about an invasion of Iraq or something like that. And he got caught up in the protest on the way to that game.
I remember he turned up and he had a bloody nose and he was really shook up. I remember that. That was quite surreal.
You were one of 3 signings sort of within a week or 2 at the club. There was you, Neil Kilkenny and Mark Hughes that all arrived together. And it's fair to say the 3 of you made quite an impact straight away on that team.
Yeah, it was. Do you know what? I love that first spell I had. My first taste of first team football. And I think, as you say, we had Neil Kilkenny on loan, who was a real good player for Oldham. And then, there was some other great pros, and it was a good. I learnt a lot during that couple of months that I was there, and that was a great squad to be a part of.
And A lot's made about young lads going out on loan to places and getting first team experience and getting minutes, especially now where there's a lot more under 23s football knocking around. How much do you think it benefited you coming out to League One at the time and getting minutes playing men's football, if you like?
It was massive. That was a massive, I won't say turning point, but I think as a young lad, I was at City, I was expected to, go on and, do good things. And I think I hit a bit of a plateau. I was just in the reserves. And I remember, I think Brian Talbot come watching a game at Carrington, a reserve game. And I think I'd done well. And then after that, I remember Kevin Keegan pulling me and saying, Oldham want to take you. And to be fair, I jumped at the opportunity. And, I went from to coming back after that long spell at Oldham and getting my debut a week or so after.
One of the things that happened when you were at Oldham was that Oldham played City in the FA Cup, and of course you couldn't play because you were on loan from City, of course. And Oldham went and won the game, and that got you in a little bit of trouble, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh my God, that's stupidity, really. Well, not stupidity. I think it was my first taste of first team football, and you get a sense of what them games mean to the players and the club, and I was a part of that. And then I think obviously it was a massive result beating Man City, and then me being a bit naive. The lads were celebrating in the change rooms after, and I think I was jumping all over the place and celebrating with them, not realising that there was photographers in there. And then I think I woke up the next day and there was pictures all over the front of the sports pages of me celebrating with the old lads beating my parent club, which didn't get out too well.
How did Kevin Keegan react to that?
Yeah, I think he just said I was stupid, but he was all right. I think he just put it down to me being young and a little bit silly and a bit naive.
And as a reward for getting through against City, we got Bolton at home in the next round. I remember that game sort of being still in the tunnel, and some of the players Bolton had at the time, like Campo and Hierro, they were like massive names at the time. And you played in that game, and well, it's fair to say you left your mark, didn't you?
Yeah, mate. You mentioned them players. I think I've still got Hierro's shirt from that game. That's one of my.
Mate, he was unbelievable, wasn't he?
He was amazing. Playing the career he had was amazing. I'm sure he enjoyed playing at Boundary Park that day. But that I was. To be fair, I had a good game that day, but then it seemed to be marred by. I think I went in for a bit of a lunge on Nicky Hunt and hurt him.
And then roll forward a couple of months, your loan spell at Oldham finishes. It's obviously been a success because you go back to City and you play the last 7 games of that season, making your Premier League debut against all teams, Bolton. Their fans didn't, I remember you telling me in the past that their fans never really let you forget that, did they?
Oh, for years after, every time I went to the Reebok Stadium after that, there was always, you could hear the boos whenever I was, whether when we were warming up or whenever I got the ball. But I always enjoyed going there, and to be fair, like Nicky Hunt didn't speak to me for years and years. I'd seen him numerous times, and it was quite a awkward situation. But it turns out years later he signed on loan at Derby when I was there, and I was like, oh God, I don't know how this is going to go. But he was completely fine, and we got along great.
Because at the time you knew him anyway, hadn't you? You'd played for England, coming through the ranks with him, hadn't you? So you kind of knew him anyway. Yeah,
I kind of knew him, but I think it was still a bit frosty. To be fair, I tried to get in contact with him because I think it did do a bit of damage to him. So being the nice guy that I am, I got tried to contact him, apologising. There was no malice in it. I didn't mean it. But at the time, he didn't want anything to do with it. He didn't want anything to do with me, and he didn't want to hear of me. So,
I mean, it's all right now. It's all water under the bridge. Your first spell at Oldham then was 17 games and 2 goals. So you kind of had people thinking that you were a goal threat as well, mate.
How wrong? Yeah, no, I remember scoring a couple of goals that first spell. But yeah, I think that's one thing throughout my career that I maybe should have done more of, was maybe chip in with a few more goals. I think I remember one season, I think it was my second spell, and I remember the Oldham fans, I think we were playing Leyton Orient away last game of the season.
Yes.
Crofty scores were on the pitch or something like that, and I was desperate to score. And I remember the first half, I hit a decent effort, and the keeper tipped it over the bar, and I was like, oh, let's see if they would have ran on.
So your first spell at Oldham ends, you go back to City, make your breakthrough into the first team, and it's then. I'm not going to completely ignore the next 7 years, but it's 7 years until you come back to us. In the meantime, you'd had very successful spell at Norwich.
Yeah, so that was a difficult decision to make. I was in and around the first team squad at City for a couple of years, and getting coming on, and I had a run of games where I started, and then I went back to being on the bench and coming on, and as you can imagine, that was a really enjoyable time. For coming up from the academy and getting into the first team, playing Premier League football was what every kid dreams of.
What sort of who was in and around City's first team at the time? Who were the sort of names you were playing with?
Anelka, McManaman, Fowler, Sylvan Distan, Joey Barton, Sean Wright Phillips, David James, David Seaman was there for a little bit. Peter Schmeichel was there. So there was stars in that team. Obviously, it's nothing like the team that City have now, but for a young kid coming into starting your career and playing in the Premier League and being surrounded by players like that, it was amazing. And
then you mentioned that obviously you didn't necessarily score as many goals as you'd like, but you did get one pretty famous one at Norwich.
Yeah, well, that's well. I was saying I think it was a really difficult decision going to Norwich because I really wanted to. I loved it at City. I was settled. It was, I was living in Manchester and it was great. But I think Stuart Pearce took me in one day and just said that Norwich had, put a bid in. It was a decent amount of money. And he said, basically, what persuaded me, he just said, like, not as your manager, but as a fatherly figure, I would advise you to go because they're paying a lot of money for you. You're going to play week in, week out, and I can't promise you that you're going to be starting this season or starting next season. So you need to go out and play games, and there's no better place to go and play than at Carrow Road. And what a great club Norwich is. So I went down there. Probably had arguably some of my best years in Norwich. I loved it. Great, amazing club, great fan base, great place to live, great part of the world. And like you said, yeah, probably one of my favourite goals was the goal against Ipswich, which I had a special relationship with the fans at Norwich, and especially after that, because if you score against Ipswich and you're a part of beating them, then you're a hero to them.
So you leave Norwich. How did you come about ending up at Derby's your next port of call? How did that come about?
Derby come about. I think I was in my third or fourth year of my contract, my final year, and I don't know whether I wanted to be closer to home. In hindsight, I wish I would have stayed at Norwich, but I think I got a few offers. Obviously, I could leave on a free on my 24th birthday. And Derby come in, spoke to Nigel Clough at the time. They put a great, offer to me. And it was something that, I really couldn't turn down. And Derby as well, it's another massive club, with, they were getting 30,000 every week, home games, great fan base, and some really good players at the time was there as well. So, I decided to make the move. And as I say, in hindsight and looking back, it probably wasn't the right thing I should have done. I think if I would have stuck it in at Norwich, stayed there, although the money wouldn't have been as great, but I think career-wise, that might have been the right thing to do.
And at Derby, you end up having a couple of loan spells out of there, Huddersfield and St Johnstone. So it just didn't really work out at Derby as you would have wanted, did it?
No, it didn't. I think started all right, and then it first started going a bit downhill when then the manager didn't play with wingers, and I think it was me and Gary Teal at the time got the chop, and then he played like central midfielders out there, and he went more compact, and it didn't suit me, and I ended up out the team, and it was a really frustrating time, because previously. I had some great years of playing regular football and doing really well in the Championship, and so that was a tough time. But as you say, that's what brought me back to, I went to St Johnstone, another club where I had a couple of good spells, some European football qualifying games, and playing the likes of Celtic and Rangers and Hearts. I had some good times in Scotland, and then also it brought me back to Oldham for the second time.
So how did the second move to Oldham come about then?
The second one.
Because you originally joined on loan, didn't you? You originally came on loan at the start of that season.
Yeah, I was due to go back to St Johnstone, and I remember getting a phone call off Paul Dickoff, who obviously I'm close with and was close with as well back then. And I think I actually took a pay cut to come to Oldham because they couldn't afford to pay.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, they couldn't afford to pay just a bit of my wages that Derby wanted paying. So yeah, I sacrificed a bit just because I wanted to come back and I wanted to come and have another stint at Oldham. And as you say, the Paul Dickoff was another major influence in me coming back at the time. And
this was the spell where you played most games at Oldham. You played 55 games at Oldham in the second spell, and you kind of look back now, and there were some really good players there at the time. And Paul Dickoff seems to have a really good dressing room. Last week we spoke to Jose Baxter, who sort of said what a great setup it was at the time, and what a good place it was to be around. It was great, and I think we massively underachieved for the squad that we had. I think if you look at it, Dickie he'd brought in Reece Wabara, fullback. We had Granzi on the other side. We had Tarky. We had big John Eves in Voto, who was just a beast at centre back. We had Wezo. We had Jose, myself. Who do we have on the left? Come on, Brody. Who was left wing? Oh, mate, you're quizzing me for what's that all about? Looking through that team at the time, who would have been in it? Robbie Simpson was in it. Dean Thurman was in it. Yeah, Dean Thurman. We had Darbs up front, didn't we? Matt Derbyshire was there for a time on loan. So you looked at our team, on paper, and you'd be like, pfft. And then a lot of them players then went on to play higher. But yeah, for some reason, Matt Smith as well. Matt Smith, but a lot of them players went on to play in the Championship and do well. Dean went on to play for South Africa and did really well and had some good spells. So it was like we had really good individuals, but for some reason we just didn't gel, and it was a real shame because, as Jose said, it was a great place to be around, and the camaraderie and the squad we had was great. And if only we would have been fighting at the top end of the table, that would have been amazing. And I'm guessing some of the characters you've mentioned there, some decent nights out in that as well. Yeah, definitely. To be fair, I think that's what made us so, I don't know, I think that's why we were such a good close-knit group, because we socialised. Obviously when you're playing with each other and you're training together every day, but I think there's quite a lot of us then who would spend time with each other away from football as well. We won't go into the nights out, but yeah, we had some good ones. Oh, mate, that's a cop-out. We won't go into the nights. I mean, fair enough, because in case anyone could get arrested on the back of it. On the pitch, some good times. Winning at Forest was, I know that, mentioned Jose again, he sort of referred to that as one of his absolute favourite games in an Oldham shirt, the cup win away at Forest. And then we do that and get Liverpool at home. So Forest... certainly a big club, and to go there and win, they were Championship, we were League One. So to go there and win was a fantastic result and performance that day. Yeah, they were a good Championship side as well, Forest. I think back then they were always up the top end of the table, and it was a tough draw when we got Forest, but especially away from home. But as I say, I think we went a goal down, didn't we? And then you're probably fearing the worst, but then that we just kicked on, and we put our stamp on the game, and there's some great goals scored in that game. And I remember the fans behind the goal. I think it was, I don't know, and the atmosphere was amazing, as they always were. Oldham's away fans were always great.
especially in them FA Cup games. They were amazing.
Beating Forest, of course, brings Liverpool to Boundary Park, and you, a fantastic win. So tell us what you remember about that day, and also you chipped in with an assist as well.
Yeah, obviously it was a game we were all looking forward to. I remember it's freezing. I think we had a lot of snow, didn't we, just before?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was what a day! What a day stroke night. It was, we seen their team sheet and yeah. Suarez, Sturridge, Sterling, and to name a few, and we were like, whoa. But we went out there, and I think it was at a time where I think the manager was under a bit of pressure because we wasn't really doing too well in the league, were we? So we all wanted to go out there and really put in a performance for him. And then, as you say, it was what happened in that game during that 90 minutes was just, it was amazing. And like Jose said, the Forest game and the Liverpool game will be games that I'll always remember.
And of course, we beat Liverpool. Fantastic day. And then just after full time, we find out the next draw, and that's Everton. So another big team at Boundary Park. And whilst we didn't win, another fantastic day. I guess the negative point from certainly, I would say, from your point of view, given your relationship, was that in the interim, Paul Dickoff had gone, and Tony Philliskirk took that game.
You're not going to mention my assist in the Everton game as well?
I was going to let you mention it.
You didn't, but you forgot about that, did you?
No, mate, I definitely not. Definitely.
Who scored it then? Who scored it?
So, mate, I'm losing you there. Was it? No. So yours was the assist for the Jordan Abita goal then? Correct.
Yeah.
See?
Correct. That was another. I think another amazing game, another amazing atmosphere at Boundary Park. Another Premier League side coming to us. And I think as far as drama goes, that was probably even more, wasn't it? Getting that equaliser in the last minute. I mean, the scenes, it was just crazy, wasn't it? And and then we got to obviously get a replay and go to Goodison Park where it wasn't to be. We'll blame Brownie for that, for giving that stupid penalty away in the first 20 minutes, but. No, I think that whole cup run, I think was just, it was great, and it really it was a highlight, and I'm sure that even the fans of Oldham look back on that year and them games, and they look back with fond memories.
I mentioned that, so you mentioned it earlier, and obviously you had a good relationship with Paul Dickoff. Unfortunately, he'd gone by that point, but under his reign, I think I'm going to mention one word to you that I want a story on the back of: Herbalife.
Yeah, so that was Hendo, who's a mate of mine, Ian Henderson. He was doing it. He was heavily involved with Herbalife, and I think it must have been leading up to Christmas, and
yeah,
I went on. I started using it, to get a bit fitter and to lose a few pounds. And to be fair, it worked. And then before I knew it, I had like half the squad was wanting to do it. So I had like Tarky and Jose, and there's quite a few lads who were doing it. I think the best thing about it was we got beat one game, and Simon, the chairman, come in, and he's like, "Who's on this Herbalife? You've got no energy." But the best thing was, Corny was on it as well. I thought, you the cheek. I know he doesn't have to run around, but bloody hell.
So obviously at that point, say Paul Dickoff's gone, and he's replaced by Lee Johnson.
The funniest bit about it as well was when he's come in, and when he's come in and he's asked who was on Herbalife, and he was seething. He was so mad, and I think he just thought it was like me and Jose. But then I think when he asked, he was like, "Who's on it? Tell me who's on it." And honestly, he just looked round and everyone was looking at each other. And then one by one, everyone just like went. There must have been about 10 hands just go up, and he was just looking around, just shaking his head.
Oh, mate. Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, at the time there were a lot of people on it, but that you were also on it during the cup run, so it wasn't doing any harm, was it? Paul Dickoff goes, Tony Philliskirk, caretaker for a couple of matches, and eventually replaced by Lee Johnson. and that was for the sort of second part of your season at the club there. How did you get on with Lee? I guess I know from being at the club at the time, he was very different to Paul Dickoff.
Yeah, he was. Do you know what? You can't knock what Lee did at Oldham. I think he brought the best out of some players. He brought in some good players. And I think it wasn't the season that I was there, but I think it might have been the season after. Oldham went on quite a good run, didn't they? And they were doing well. They fell away and things turned, but there was a spell where he looked like he could challenge. And then, like you say, he's gone on and managed some good clubs and still is to this day at Sunderland now. So, but yeah, I think Lee was a good appointment. I think the chairman took a punt on a young manager, inexperienced manager, and sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. But I think sometimes them young managers just need that chance to get into the game and show what they can do. And Simon was one for doing that.
And at that point, your loan had been made into a permanent deal. Did it look like you were gonna stay on at the end of that season, or were you kind of always thinking you were on your way at the end of that season?
I probably would have liked to. Yeah, I probably would have liked to have stayed. I think the only reason I didn't was one of my old managers from St Johnstone, actually, Steve Lomas, and he phoned me and told me not to sign because he told me before, but he told me he was getting a Millwall job, who obviously were in the Championship. So he told me not to sign and that he was going to take me there with him. So I didn't sign. I didn't sign with Oldham. I don't know whether it turned a bit funny between me and Lee Johnson at that point, but I remember there was something, he come out and said something when I left, which wasn't true. And so there's a little bit of bad blood there, but, and then I ended up getting messed around by Lomas, who I trusted, who, he took me down. I went away with Millwall pre-season and he had to get a couple out, to get the wages to bring us in. And he said he couldn't get them out, and it left me in a bit of a sticky situation. And I think after that, that's when I ended up going. I went back to Scotland, back to St Johnstone.
And I guess there was probably only one thing that I can think of from your second spell at the club that was sort of negative, or didn't end up being that way. But you caught for an accusation of racism at Sheffield United one game that it just simply wasn't true.
Oh, yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, we were playing Sheffield United away. I think we were losing 1-0. I think we were losing 1-0. And the ball's gone out. It was like last 5 minutes. And the ball boys come and got the ball. So I sprinted over to get the ball back off him, take a quick throw in, and he kicked the ball back past me. And I was angry, and I turned around and said something to him, something along the lines of, "You little," I don't know, whatever you would say, Prick. And then didn't think anything of it until the final whistle. And then I think it was after the game, we were walking down the tunnel, and there was police waiting for me, and didn't know why. And then it turned out that there was a large section of the fans on the far side of Bramall Lane who accused me of saying things that weren't true, and just basically trying to get me in trouble.
I mean, that sort of, it lasted a few days, but it must have felt a lot longer for you.
It probably lasted about a week or so, and it wasn't nice. It was like, it was on the news, it was in the papers. I think the next game we travelled away somewhere, and I was getting some stick about it wherever we were going. I had to come off social media because there was things were getting said on that. And I think the worst thing about it was, I think it's a bit embarrassing because I've got a lot of friends in the game, black and white, and I think for everyone that knew me, they knew that it was a load of rubbish and that, there was nothing in it. But, for people that don't know me and people who just read the papers or watch Sky Sports News, then they question it.
Well, fortunately, it all got cleared up, and
it all got cleared up. It all got cleared up because when I went in for the police interview, basically I was like, right, what are the accusations? And like, there was about 10 different accusations. So like, one person said I said one thing, another person said I said another thing, another person said I said another thing. I'm just like, what chance have you got?
Fair enough. And then you go back up to St Johnstone and make history up there.
Yep. Do you know what? Like my spells that I had at Oldham and the spells that I had in Scotland, I had really good memories, and like the FA Cup games at Oldham, and I think when we was at St Johnstone, we were batting way above our weight, and we finished in the top 3. So then the following summer we'd be involved travelling, across Europe, playing in UEFA qualification games, which we didn't get through. But to be fair, we won a couple, but we didn't qualify for the group stages. But they were great nights. And then I think later on we went on to have a great cup run and win the Scottish Cup, which was the first time in the club's history.
I bet that was quite some night after that, wasn't it?
Yeah. The lads we always, when we talk about it now, it was like we went back to Perth after the cup final and we had a party at the ground, and then we went into town after, and honestly, you would have thought we were the Beatles when we rolled in.
Happy days. And then, of course, you end up back at Oldham for a third time. How does that one come back? Because I think the manager when you came back for the third spell was Darren Kelly at the time, I think.
It was Darren Kelly, yeah. I think, who was in there before? I think I'd spoke to Dean Holden, who was manager just before Darren Kelly, and I think he'd shown a little bit of interest. So I always knew they were on the radar a little bit again. And then I think when Darren Kelly come in, I got a phone call. I'd already told St Johnstone that I was leaving. Spoke to Oldham, and to be fair, I really liked Darren, and the opportunity to come back for another time at Oldham was I jumped at it, and I was back at Banch Park again for, as you say, the third time. And
it was a little bit different that time. It wasn't quite as settled. Darren Kelly, of course, didn't last particularly long, and was replaced by David Dunn. How was that for you?
No, do you know what? I felt really sorry for Darren Kelly because I felt like he didn't get a lot of time. I think he was under pressure straight away. I think we were, not too many games in, but we were like top half of the table, but I just felt like someone always had it in for him from the very get-go. The lads really liked him, but as you say, he didn't last very long, and then Dunny come in, and I kind of knew Dunny, but that was another weird situation because it was kind of like Dunny was still a player, and then word got out that the gaffer might have been getting sacked and that Dunny was going to take over, and then Dunny does a speech with the lads and with the gaffer and says, "Listen, that's not my intention. I'm here to play." And then a week later, Dunny's the manager. So it's just like this is there's a few things like that happened during my time at Oldham, but you look back and you laugh and you think, some of the things you think that would only happen at Oldham.
And again, I guess to almost repeat myself, David Dunn again doesn't last that long, and John Sheridan comes in.
Yep, Shez comes back. Again, can't speak highly enough of Shez. Really like him as a bloke, and I liked him as a manager as well. I liked his, I don't know how to describe him, but he come in and he was straight talking. Where you stood with him. There was times when I wasn't playing with him, but you still can't help but like the man. He's just he's honest, and his training's enjoyable, and he always manages to. It seems like he comes in when we were struggling, and really brought the best out of us, and managed to keep us up that year, which was brilliant.
And a few who are the sort of lads you were playing with then? Who I think he brought in Matty Palmer, didn't he? Who did a great job. So some good lads in the team then as well.
Yeah, there's some good lads. I think we had the likes of Kells, who he's at Coventry now in the Championship and he captain there. Like you said, Matty Palmer come in, did really, really well. He was a really good signing from Burton. But we had Jez, we had Willow. And again, I've never been in the 3 times that I've been at Oldham. I've never been in a bad dressing room. The dressing rooms have always been great. The lads have been great to be around and great teams to be a part of. But yeah, I think it was really enjoyable in the shed.
And I remember, in fact, before I move on, I remember you telling me a story after the game that we'd won at home to stay up, and you went back into the dressing room, and as a reward, Shez just went, "See you all Thursday."
He was like that. Do you know what? Some managers, I think they've just got a knack of getting the players to play for them and making the players happy, and just little things like that. Like you come in after a game, and if you've got a good result, it'd be like, right, see you Tuesday or see you Wednesday, and you've got a few days to go and spend, because that the next time you play or the week after, you put in a shift for him and you work your balls off for him, because that you want to play for him, and that if you do right by him, he'll do right by you.
I think the final manager you played under at Oldham, Stephen Robinson, he was the final manager there before you left. How did it go with Steve?
It was a funny one with Steve. Again, really nice guy, good bloke. I think I'd had a contract agreed before he come in, and then he come in. And I think basically he was playing a bit clever, because he was. I went in pre-season, and then he was like, "Oh no, I want to see Crofty in training. I want to see him. I want to get to know him." And then that pre-season, I was doing well, but he was still persisting with, "Oh, I'm not sure." But basically, what it was, he didn't want my wages coming out of his budget, so he wanted it to be the chairman signing me. So he signs me, and then he keeps his budget for whatever else he wants. So he was quite clever with it, really, because he basically told me that he wanted me to sign, but he was just trying to be clever with the chairman and just trying to keep his budget.
So I've got so we're recording this, and it is transfer deadline day. So as a player, you've had a couple of deadline day moves. How is deadline day for a player? Do you always know in advance, or can you literally just rock up to training on deadline day and be told, right, such a body's in for you, go and have a medical?
No, you as a player, and you always have a clue before. I mean, I said that even the likes of when Stuart Pearce took me into his office and told me about Norwich's interest, I knew about that like weeks before. Like, I think as a player, and your agent tells you, or who's watching games, and who's showing interest in you. So I'd say 9 times out of 10 the ball's already rolling, and then maybe it just takes that last day, like today on deadline day, where the deal gets done and gets over the line, and the team just goes for it and does the deal.
Because I think a lot of what a lot of people forget is that a lot of footballers are fans too. So of course, deadline day, the WhatsApp groups are going, and everyone's trying to find out who's going where and who's doing what.
Yeah, it's a fun day. I think it's as a supporter as well, like you say, it's fun, and I think as a player, you're always looking to see if there's a chance of you going somewhere, if there's a chance of your mate maybe going somewhere, or you always have an idea, or you hear a few things about a player in the dressing room who's got interest from elsewhere. So it is always it's an interesting day. But I don't think too much has happened today, really, has it?
No, but that's famous last words, because by the time this goes out a week on Thursday, we'll have missed like 10, 15 million pound deals in the last few hours. So let's just say it was a quiet deadline day.
Yeah, it was a quiet one.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of questions that were that have been sent in. So I'm going to get to them and do them. And then I've got a few quick fire questions to ask you that I don't want you to think too much about the answers. I just want you to fire out what you see. So the questions that have come in, first from Chaddy the Owl. Remember Chaddy the Owl at Oldham? Wayne, he wants to know, what is the best dressing room prank that you've seen or pulled at Oldham?
At Oldham? There's a prank, but I can't say it on this, which occurred during Steve Robinson's tenure, which I honestly can't go into it because they're like get into trouble. So I think I'll go with something that's not as bad. I think me and Jose, because Rippers used to have a bit of a mouth on him, Conor Ripley, and he'd been given it in training, and he used to get a bit cocky at times, let's say that. And I think one day after training, me and Jose got back in and we got his car keys. And someone took his car, drove it. Do you know the estate behind the stadium? So if you come in the back way through the back gates.
Yeah.
At the newsstand. Yeah. So took it out of there, drove it around one of the estates by the ground and just parked it up. And then took his keys, put them back in his pocket. He was phoning. He was messaging on the group chat. It must have been honestly about 5 o'clock that day. We'd finished training about 1. We'd had lunch. We'd all gone home, and he was still messaging at 5 o'clock, saying, "Come on, lads, where's my car?" that was quite a good one.
Cool. Anthony Fitzgerald would like to know, what was your favourite dressing room moment? So be that a celebration or just a kind of favourite event.
Favourite event? I'd say event was probably beating Liverpool. Obviously, I think as a kid I grew up supporting Liverpool, so to beat them, I've always had really good results against Liverpool. When I was at City, we beat them a couple of times. Obviously, when I was at Oldham, we beat them. So I'd say the Liverpool game. That meant a lot to to the club and to all the lads. And I think I remember if you're going to say a moment, I think I remember after that game, Brendan Rodgers coming into our dressing room after the game and congratulating the lads and shaking everyone's hand. So he was really gracious in defeat, and obviously that was a nice memory of him coming in and showing us the respect of beating his side.
And I've got to share with people a story about you being a Liverpool fan. So me and you went to a Liverpool game a couple of seasons ago, and I picked you up and we drove down to Anfield, and you told me where to park because it's where you always park and there's no problems there ever. We go to the game, you sorted tickets out, fantastic. We have a great night. Come back out, lo and behold, parking ticket there, and your little side street parking ends up costing me 70 quid.
Hey, did I not pay for half of that?
Yeah, to be fair, you did.
Hey, we just cancelled out the free tickets, didn't it?
Yeah. We had a great night, free tickets, all done by a 70 quid parking ticket for a road that you park on every time you go to Anfield.
Mate, honestly, that is the first time that has ever happened. But I don't park there anymore. I can get us in a car park.
Funny that, mate. Yeah.
Well, you can get us in a car park now. You work there as well, don't you?
No. Well, I did before all this COVID nonsense started. Yeah. Right. I have a section now of fairly quick fire questions. Don't think too much about the answers. I just know what sort of comes into your head. So, of your 3 spells at the club, your best one?
My first one as most memorable, and for what come to me after that and the success that I had there at that time, and first tasting professional football and helping me break into City's first team.
Excellent. Next question. You played under 8 managers at Oldham. Favourite one?
Favourite one? Go on then, name them all.
Oh, you managed Brian Talbot, Paul Dickoff, yeah. Tony Philliskirk, Lee Johnson, Darren Kelly, David Dunn, John Sheridan, Stephen Robinson.
Oh, right. Really like Brian Talbot because he gave me that opportunity to go and play. And I enjoyed playing for him. He was old school as anything. We used to run. It was hard, but I really liked him. He was a good guy. I think Darren Kelly, great bloke. Really liked him. Who was the other? Who was before him?
We had the Brian Salt. There was Paul Dickoff, Tony Phillips, Steve Johnson.
Yeah, obviously Paul Dickoff as well. I think he's for anyone involved with City, he's a legend, and as I say, he was a good manager. All the lads liked him, and it was just a real shame that, as I say, it didn't gel, because he did put together a decent side and a decent squad, and another time we could have gone on and done well, but he'd probably be one of my other favourite.
Okay. Across all your spells at Oldham, best player you played with?
At Oldham. Mate, do you know who I really rated the first time I was there?
Go on. Adam Griffin.
Mate, I thought he would have, honestly, see, when I was there that time, I thought he would have gone on, and I thought he would have gone on to have, a really good career, because he was only small, wasn't he? But I remember he played, no one used to get past, he was like a little rat, no one could get past him, he was quick. I remember, did he play against Sean Wright Phillips that day? And
yeah,
against City, and did really well. And I used to look at him and think, oh, he's got a great career ahead of him. Don't know why that didn't happen. Did he play all the way through to his?
Yeah, he had a couple of moves after Oldham. He was at Stockport for a while. He did carry on in the game. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was I really liked Griff as a player when I was there that time. I think, who else did we have? Do you know what? I see, Erzy, what a player he was. He had just a wand of a left foot, didn't he?
His free kicks were something else.
Kilkenny, great ability. Again, probably another one. But saying that, Kilkenny, he did go on to have a good career, didn't he? At Leeds, and so he was another one. I think
he's at Melbourne in Australia now.
Yeah, he's in Australia. Yeah. I think you look at Jose during his first spell. Some of the things that he used to do, and he was a player that I really enjoyed playing with. Who else was there?
Mate, I reckon Tarky's about to kill you.
Tarky, I can't leave Tarky out, can I? Do you know what, Tarky? He was obviously he was a young lad, wasn't he, when at Oldham. But you could see his ability, his left foot, his right foot, his crossfield balls, and he could zing a ball. He could find you from anywhere. And to be fair, he was still, as I say, he was still young, and he was still learning the game when I was there. But you could see his ability, and credit to him, for kicking on and playing for England, and that it's incredible, and fair play to him. But yeah, so you've got to give it to Tarky, haven't you?
Okay. Next one, the funniest player in the dressing room.
You know what, Brody? In my defence, right, it's hard to remember everyone.
You had 3 spells. Yeah,
I've been there for 3 spells. I must have played in so many different 11s and so many different sides and squads, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying to think of actual players that I play with, because there's been so many.
Well, there's only 2 more questions about players directly, and I reckon one of them you'll be able to answer straight away. So we'll go with funniest lads in the dressing room.
Funniest lads, Connor Brown, but he probably didn't. It wasn't that he meant to be funny, but he just was funny. He was a little character. He was. I think he didn't play much, but Eckersley, he come for a little spell. Another, I think you describe him as a weirdo, but he was funny. Who else? You had the likes of Will Hayning the first time I was there. He was a great lad and a real character. One of them guys who you just think he'd run through a brick wall head first. He was just that type of guy. I think, who else was there? Characters. Jose. Don't really need to say much about Jose, but yeah, he was a right character. And I think the likes of Jose, you could never take that away from him, because that's just who he was, and I think that was just him, and the way he played reflected that. He was just off the cuff, and just a great natural ability.
Okay, the final one on players for you then. Loosest cannon in any dressing room?
Josie.
That wasn't who I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say George Green.
Oh, he was a bloody. Oh my god! I could tell some stories about him as well. He was a. What was it? He was. Do you know? He was a nice lad, and he had a. Obviously, there was big things expected of him, and I think my agent took him from. Where was it? Before he took him, was it from Bradford to Everton?
Yes. Yeah. He went through there as like 15-year-old.
And then he come in at Oldham, and I remember my agent saying to me, "Listen, like he's got so much ability." Oldham fans didn't see it because obviously, he was just he just wasn't right. Mentally he was a bit crazy, and he wasn't settled and mature off the pitch, which I think ultimately, affected his performances on it. But ability-wise, he could have been anything he wanted to be. But I remember he was struggling. I think he was struggling for cash, and he had an Audi A5, really nice car. So I think as a senior player, he come to me and went, "Oh, like, can you help me out with it?" So I said, "Right, I'll take it off you. I'll pay you monthly installments, and I'll take the car." So I think I had it about 6 months, and then paying him every month, giving him his money for whatever he was doing with it. And then I got a phone call saying, "Oh, the car's getting repossessed." And I was like, "What do you mean the car's getting repossessed? I've took over his payments. Why is the car getting repossessed?" And he'd been taking the cash for the car and not paying it. Honestly, you couldn't write it. You could not write it.
Brilliant. And the last question of the quickfire ones. Everyone always asks about like what your best game was and everything like that. Worst game for the club. When were you awful?
Worst game. I don't know. There was some bad ones. I think obviously when confidence is low. Oh no, I'd have to say under Shez, when I think I was out the side and then I was training well, and he was like, "Right, I'm putting you back in. Like, go in and stay in." And it was Walsall away.
I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
I think it was like, I don't know, 10 minutes in, and the ball's bouncing. I started all right, and the ball was bouncing. I've gone in with my foot up to try and block the fullback's clearance, and my momentum's took me in, and I've took him out quite high up his leg, and turned around and got a straight red. And I think ultimately that was the end of my Oldham career. I think that was the end of my Oldham career. I think Shez, obviously wasn't happy about it, and he was quite public with that. And I didn't play again after that. So things could have gone differently if it wasn't for that moment. So I'd probably say that.
In which case, I need to bring this back up now. So the final question I've got for you: best Christmas party.
Best Christmas party. Do you know what? We had a couple cancelled at Oldham because things weren't going well. So I can tell you the worst one. That was when we were booked. Where were we booked? We were going to London or Liverpool. We had the hotel booked. We had the nights sorted, 2 days. And I remember coming in after the game. I think we got beat at home. I think it might have been MK Dons or someone. And I remember the gaffer coming in and saying, "Right, you're in at 9 o'clock in the morning." And we were like, "Oh, no." And then, so that was the worst one. Best one. I don't know. We had some good ones with Oldham. I think my best ones were always my City ones. I was a young lad. They were quite eventful, and the young lads were always made to do some things that we can't really talk about on camera, but let's call them initiations.
Oh dear! And have they left you mentally scarred?
Stuff that would not be allowed to go on today. Let's put it that way.
Fair enough, mate. That sounds like the perfect place to leave it. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us and take a look back at the time at Latics.
No worries, mate.
Thank you very much to Lee Croft for being this week's guest on the Chaddy Enders. Once again, a big thank you to our sponsors, AC Tyres, Eden Creative and NFL Weekends. And a big thank you to you for listening to the podcast or watching it, however you've consumed it today. We are on Facebook and Twitter at the Chaddy Enders. If you've got any suggestions for any future guests or any questions you want to ask any of the guests we've got lined up, please don't hesitate to drop me a line. And please also feel free to check out our sponsors as well. Until next week, thanks very much and have a great week. Cheers.